And good morning and welcome to everyone. Today we're going to talk with Mandy, who has a disability, parenting with a disability, and we're going to talk about her experiences and that she's found for herself and from others in the community. So welcome, Mandy.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. I've been trying to organise a talk on this issue for quite a while, so I do appreciate you giving up your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Jeff.
So, do you just want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what kind of disability you have, and how
Yeah,
many
sure.
children? Yep.
I am Mandy McCracken. I became disabled when I was 39 years old. I got sepsis from an infection. I've got no idea how I got it, but it put me into hospital. I was in hospital for 10 months and I ended up with both my hands amputated and both my feet amputated below the elbow and below the knee. So now I'm a quadruple amputee and I use prosthesis every day. And I've got a body power hook on today, which is what I use for the computer. And besides all that, I'm a mum of 3 girls. I live in central Victoria and I'm really, really busy doing all sorts of advocacy work, volunteering for disability support groups, etc., etc. Life is very full.
Yeah. Well, my wife had sepsis a few years ago through the flu. She got it through influenza A.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, she was in ICU for on and off for months. So
Yeah, it's
yeah, I
nasty.
can't.
It comes on very quickly, and you've got no idea what's just hit you. But that my community service announcement today is if you're feeling really, really crook, you got a flu or something going on, just go and get yourself to an emergency department and ask them if it could be sepsis. That's the key thing to do, nice and early, so they can fix you. And is your wife all right now?
No, no. She's
No. Okay.
yeah, no. She's got some issues related to it after it. So yeah,
Yeah.
she struggles every day, health wise. So
Yeah. It's a
unfortunately,
nasty,
but
nasty condition. Yeah. So often, if you end up with multiple amputations, it's sepsis that gave it to you. So anyone who's a quadruple amputee, pretty much it's either landmines or sepsis are the two options. And unfortunately, we don't have landmines here in Australia. I hope
yeah,
that your
so
wife gets better.
well, never will. She'll never be the same.
Mm,
So she was prior, but she's doing the best she can. Um,
okay.
yeah. So anyway, so you said you have 3 girls. What ages?
At the moment, what are we, 19, 17, and 14 years old? So I got sick 10 years ago. So I actually got sick on my eldest daughter's ninth birthday. And at the time, my youngest I think she was just about to turn 4. So, yeah, my eldest remembers it very well. And my youngest daughter, I would say she doesn't remember me without my disability at all. Yeah.
Right. So what was it like coming home and for you to being a wife and a mother and learning all your skills that you've acquired over a lifetime, relearning them?
Yeah, it was intense, that's for sure. And it wasn't pretty. I was a really busy, a really active stay at home mum before I got sick. I was on a whole heap of committees for my kids' school, local community kind of stuff. And then, I had that 10-month period that I wasn't actually in the building, I was in hospital. And then, of course, you come home and then you've got to learn everything again. So, whilst I was in hospital, I had to learn how to walk, I had to learn how to go to the bathroom, how to eat. Um, I had to learn all of it again. So coming home, I still, the learning certainly continued for, I'd say, another maybe 4 years of me just trying to understand how this plays out. And then, of course, for the rest of the family, my husband stopped working when I got sick. So he was then the head of the house. And so he took on the role as the stay-at-home parent. He just had me as well to look after. So yeah, it was really challenging. We had some really important psych sessions, which still go on to this day. And I think if we didn't have that ability to talk it through with somebody who wasn't directly affected, I think we'd be in a really bad place.
Yeah, I can understand. I've got multiple disabilities. I lost my sight in '98. My oldest daughter was turning 4. We had our youngest in 2000, so I've never seen her, my youngest.
Right.
And it's been hard. So I have a lot of empathy for what you and your family have gone through. Um, so your learning curve, you just want to, like, when you come home from hospital, what did you have to relearn? I mean, you touched on a few things, but as
Yeah.
far as being a parent, what did you have to relearn?
Oh, look at simple stuff like, one day I had to put the washing away. I was trying to put the kids' washing away in their chest of drawers in their bedroom, and I was doing it with prosthetic hands, and I just could not get my hands to work. And so I had a massive tantrum. Like, I had a tantrum like I was 4 years old. And learning the patience required for all of this was probably the biggest thing that I had to learn, let alone the actual physicality of how to get around a house, how to do stuff. You've got to learn the nuts and bolts of the physicality of being disabled, but the emotional stuff probably was more challenging. And then the tables turn with whose role is who. So the kids became really invaluable for me in helping me do stuff. So I went from being a completely independent adult to being an adult that required help from everyone. And be at the time, she would have been maybe 5 at that stage. My 5-year-old daughter was helping me do stuff, and it was literally stuff like going to the bathroom and putting clothes on, or brushing my teeth. Just nitty gritty everyday things like that. You've got to learn how to do. And through to learning how to drive. How do you drive when you don't have hands and feet? I had to learn how to do all that again. I've had to learn how to ride a bike again. I've even gone back to rock climbing. So, you got to
Wow.
learn all this stuff and how that plays out when you've got this disability.
Yeah, and it can be hard to, being the parent, relying on the child taking over part of that role as a parent. Um, that's hard to cope with. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Yeah, I think you need to learn how to ask for help from everyone. You need to be comfortable asking help from strangers, and that is something. Be it a kid or be it a stranger. You've got to learn to ask for help and be okay with asking for help. I remember a fellow down the road from me, his wife had just become a disability support worker, and he, for the life of himself, could not understand why on earth somebody would want to do that, because who wants to wipe old people's asses, was what he said. And it's like, oh my God, I'm in my mid-30s, and that's exactly what I need someone to do for me. So,
yeah,
the whole thing is this giant learning curve, and becoming comfortable with your situation changing, enormous change, and having to be okay with that. So yeah, it's all just part of the package. And now I don't mind at all. I'll quite happily ask people for help. I'm actually doing a speech next week at the National Disability Summit, and I'm not actually going to have a carer with me that night. I'm staying in a hotel room. I'm going to need to find someone to take my earrings out. So I have to go and
yeah,
find someone and say, "Excuse me, do you mind doing this for me? Can you help me take my earrings out? Because I can do the rest of it.
yeah.
I can do everything else, but I can't do my earrings." So I've been thinking about it the last couple of days, like who's going to be in the building that I can ask them to do that, and they're not going to be completely freaked out by it all.
Yeah, look, I think that's one of the hardest things for people who were fiercely independent and acquiring a disability is acknowledging you need help and asking for it. It's
Yep.
a really hard thing to overcome. I struggled with it for a long time.
Yeah. And I think the general public, this fellow making that comment to me, like, you just have no idea. Like, I came away from it quite angry with him for commenting like that. Like, really, how can he say a comment like that with directly to me, which is bizarre. But anyway, and just not having this space to understand what people's situations might be, and being so judgmental over what that situation's like when it is part of our everyday.
Look, I think a lot of people can relate to that. I myself, I was getting out and about in my CBD, and I got disorientated, and it took me 5-10 minutes to reorientate using a cane.
Yep.
And a few days later, I was doing an O&M session with a mobility instructor, and this bloke come up and said, "Oh, excuse me," and my instructor turned around. She said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I seen him the other day down near um, Dan Murphy, and is he allowed out by himself?" It's and I was stood there and I just said, "Well, what they did is my support now that my own O&M instructor said, yeah, of course." He said, he went, "Oh, so it's okay for him to be out by himself?" She said, "Well, yeah." And we just walked away, and I'm walking away shaking my head. And yeah, look, unfortunately, those attitudes are going to stay with some people. They're just going to have that mindset.
No, I hope you asked him whether or not he's allowed out by himself.
Well, it's funny enough, when we were walking back after about 15 minutes, I started laughing,
Mm-hmm.
and my O&M instructor said, "What are you laughing at?" So that dickhead who wanted to know if I was allowed out by myself. I said, "What an idiot." She goes, "Oh, he's just over there. He could hear." So I don't care, you know. But yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of those people in the community, and we just have to continually chip away at re-educating
Yes.
or educating people.
Now, here's
So,
my bit of education you can give me. What's an O&M instructor?
orientation and mobility.
Right. And so what,
So,
they go out with you and just teach you tricks and tips on how to get
yeah,
around?
yeah. So if I want to learn to walk from point A to point B, we'll just keep walking that same route over and over and over again until I learn where all the landmarks are, which could be like a Telstra box or a bump in the tiles, the texture of a window, sounds and smells, and shade, and the time of the day where the shade is, all those sorts
Right.
of things. So you learn those. You're focusing on all your other senses except for sight, and you're using a cane at the same time. So it's pretty intense.
Right. And so, sorry, when did you lose your eyesight? How old were you at the time?
I lost my sight in '98, and I think I was born in '64, so what's that? 34.
Right. So what was the most challenging thing for you?
Leaving the front door. It took me a couple of years before I could walk out the front door by myself,
Right.
because I was just worrying about what other people would think about me, walking around and getting lost, and how I'd ask for help and all that sort of thing. So um, it took a while to build the confidence up and to have enough experience with help from the guide dogs, learning my CBD so I could walk around by myself. So
Right. And do
yeah.
you feel confident now? You've got it, like, do you still feel anxious walking out the door, or you're all good?
Oh, every time, because I get disorientated anywhere. This is where I had an argument with the NDIS, because a couple of times when I was out walking around where I live, I got disorientated
Mhm.
completely, had no idea where I was, and I had to call my wife and have my iPhone up So I FaceTimed her, and I just
Right.
showed, just moved the camera around and till she recognised where I was, and she just guided me back to a street where I knew where I was.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so for me, the iPhone's a multi-purpose tool for me, but the NDIS wouldn't fund it because it's an everyday item. So
Right.
yeah,
Yes. Wow.
so
Okay. Who knew that, you would FaceTime and do that to get yourself home? That's great. I wouldn't
yeah,
think to do that at all.
yeah. Ah, well, you just got to learn how to think outside the box sometimes. But yeah, but
Yeah, that's great.
yeah. So what was it like for you when you first started venturing out into the community?
My, yeah, I finally got myself a electric wheelchair when I was in rehab, and the rehab hospital I was in was, a big campus, had a coffee shop sort of downstairs. I had to go down a couple of lifts and out onto the sort of the footpath around the hospital, and there was a coffee shop there. And so the first day that I took myself out for a cup of coffee, and I was literally going from my rehab room out to the coffee shop in the building. Like I wasn't even going out on the street. I was surrounded by people who were all nursing staff. So really, it shouldn't have been that daunting. But for me, it
Yeah.
was almost terrifying, but not quite. Anyway, so I got down to the coffee shop. I had my purse. I had my prosthetic hands on, which I would have only had for a month or so by that stage. And I ordered myself a cup of coffee and, tried to get my credit card out of my wallet and zap it on their machine and put it back and zip my wallet up and then get over to a table, sit down at a table, and then try and pick up a cup of coffee and drink it. And the whole process was just this level of anxiety, this panic of just trying to get through it and not stuff it up. And then, of course, to drink a cup of coffee and not completely pour it all over yourself. And I just did it by myself in my own time. And it was really emotionally challenging to do it. But, you're sitting there and the conversation you have in your head, the congratulations you give yourself, the fact that you actually made it, you've done it, it's a success, and I drove my little wheelchair back up through the hospital, up the lift and down the corridor and back to my room, was massive. Like such a stupidly simple thing to do
Mhm.
that, of course, in my previous life, I would have done without even blinking. But now was just so enormous. And yeah, it was, incredibly rewarding to do that. And then every time I would just go a little bit further or I'd just do another little trip. And I think doing all those trips, as you say, obviously I would imagine you went out of the house a few times, but with people to help you. Having somebody to help you do that, to build up your confidence so that when you're ready, you can go and do it by yourself is enormously important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard to explain to people that don't have disabilities, what you lose and what it's like to regain what you take for granted. It's just a huge achievement.
Oh, yeah. And the value in the little things in life is just so out of proportion now for me. So,
Yeah.
I got back to driving. I didn't drive for 2 years, 4 years, I think it might have been actually. Um, and I was talking it up because I have a Facebook page that I blog on, and I was talking up, having my car modified and going to my occupational therapist, and we were doing driving lessons, and he was giving me the okay, and I was getting all excited. I was about to get my car delivered, and it was going to be my first time driving, and I was putting out there on Facebook, what should be the song that I have playing, and it was going to be this big momentous occasion. I was going to get in the car, and where should I go, and who wants to come with me? And then, sure enough, the day came, the car was there. a kid was running late. I had to pick him up from school. I had to be somewhere. Something was going on, and it literally just turned into this mad rush of me jumping in the car, driving somewhere, picking a kid up, and racing home, jumping out again, and all the occasion of it just disappeared back into regular rushed life, and it was like, oh, well, there goes that moment. But yeah, but now,
Yeah.
I'm incredibly grateful for the stuff that I can do, and there's a heap of stuff I can't do anymore. But I'm actually really grateful that I have done so much in my life before my disability that I can feel quite settled that, okay, I'm not going to go hiking again. That's something that's not going to happen, but I did it before, so that's okay.
Yeah, and some of the things that you lose, and like you said, that you'll never regain. It's something that a lot of people say that you grieve that you no
Oh,
longer you
definitely.
can do it. Yeah, it's hard to explain to a person who hasn't gone through it or hasn't had someone close to them
Mm,
that's gone through it. It's like trying to describe the color blue to someone who's blind. Um,
yeah.
it's just next to impossible.
Yeah, I've come across a young girl just recently who's acquired a disability just 2 years ago, and, she said to me really quite abruptly, she goes, "When do you ever get over the anger?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, that's a big comment, a big question to ask just off the cuff." Um, and I said to her, "Yeah, I reckon you have days it comes and goes, but it certainly, waters down a little bit. The anger in the early days was pretty intense." And I was talking to my psych about this girl the other day, and I said, that I went through those whole, 7 stages of grieving. And my psych said, "Well, you never finish those 7 stages of grieving. They just roll around in circles for the rest of your life."
Yeah, that's true.
And I was like, "Oh," and I said to my psych, I said, "Oh, that's a bit disappointing. I was waiting for it to all calm down." She goes, "No, it'll just keep going. Just, you'll come and go in different parts of it, and it'll just go for the rest of your life." Okay.
Well, that's probably one of the smartest things I heard anyone, in that profession say. I had an argument with someone. I said, I really hate being blind. I hate what I've lost. You know, oh, you haven't accepted it yet. I said, well, yeah, I've accepted that I'll never see again, but
Mm.
I hate the fact that I'm blind and I can't do things. It's just I hate it.
Yeah,
And she said, well, you haven't accepted it. I said, no, you're not understanding. I have accepted it. I don't like it, but I've accepted it.
yeah.
It's two different things.
Yeah, I went through a whole stage of I wanted to list all the things I couldn't do anymore. It was just as a process. I don't know why, but said I really want to create a list. I love a list. Create a list of the things I can't do. I can't hold my husband's hand. I can't climb a mountain. I can't go ice skating. And of course, being optimistic, my psychologist said to me, "Well, why don't you make a list of the things you can do?" I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was interesting because back then, this conversation I had with her was pretty early on in it. In this it was probably within a couple of years of me losing my hands and feet, and if I was to write the list now of what I can do compared to what I would have written 4 years ago, it's vastly different. Like I must admit now, I reckon there's very little that I can't do anymore because I've worked it out. Like, I would have said I can't go hiking, but of course I can go hiking. I just, might need a bit of help to get there, and it might be in a wheelchair, but I can still do it. So it's a matter of, I think pivoting, learning to pivot, and instead of saying to yourself you can't do stuff, it's just a matter of like, okay, well, how can I still do what that is, and what would it look like today compared to what it would have been beforehand? So
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what you can and can't do, it's the way you have to. Look, I tell people, I can do everything you can do. I just do it differently.
Mm,
That's the easiest way to explain it, I think.
yep.
And the person, oh, you can't drive. So, well, I can drive. I've had a lot of accidents, but I can still drive. You
Well,
know,
yeah, self-driving, what is it? Self-driving cars, they will be around eventually, hopefully in our lifetimes.
not my lifetime, I don't think.
No?
No, no, I turn 60 next February, so yeah, I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime.
I just went for a trial for a double-seater bike the other day. So, I have been trying to ride a tricycle, my own tricycle independently, and it's a bit scary, and I've almost crashed and died at least twice. But, the other day I came across a bike that's side by side sitting. So you can go and ride a bike with someone sitting next to you. They do the directions and the braking, and you just push with your legs. So,
Yeah,
there's ways of doing stuff out there. It's gonna be a little different to what you used to do, but you can still do it.
yeah. It's like I said, I can still do things, but I just do them differently. There's always a
Mm,
workaround.
yeah,
But when my wife was pregnant with our youngest, I said to um, the lady from the Royal Blind Society at that stage, she said, "Are you okay? Looking after a baby?" And I went, "No, I'm really scared." She said, "Well, what are you scared about?" I said, "Well, what if the baby chokes? What do I do? You know, how do I change nappies?" So that's what she worked on for 6 months. Was she got me paramedics to come to my house with a life-size doll,
yep,
um, showed me what to do if the baby's choking, the baby's got a fever and sweating to cool it down properly. Um, we got on the floor and we changed. And when my youngest daughter was born, I changed the nappy. It's a whole process. You're relearning what you already knew how to do.
mm,
So, that for me, the relearning part's, I think, the worst
yep.
because,
You didn't
because
enjoy it?
well, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It's just when I looked after my oldest, I had sight, so I was doing all that sort of stuff, giving her a bath and changing her nappy and feeding her, and because my wife was working and I was looking after the house.
Mm,
But when I lost my sight, I had to relearn everything, and it just, when you're sighted, you can just look at something and just copy it. You can't do that when you're blind. You have to go,
mm,
step by step, bit by bit. So it's a whole process.
mm.
And that's what I found the hardest,
Yeah,
being a parent.
yeah,
My youngest, when she was at primary school, she was often teased about, me being blind, and um, you know, s- some of the kids there were quite nasty and cruel to her.
mm.
Having a parent that's blind and has other disabilities. Um, did your kids go through that?
Yeah, one of my kids was, bullied at school because she had a mum that was a pirate. Because 'cause I've got a
Oh,
body-powered hook, and,
uh,
I said, "Well, yeah, I you could call me a pirate, why not?" I said, "Who else has got a parent who's a pirate?" And, we turned it around, and actually what I did is I insisted on doing, show and tell at school. So I turned up to school one day and I said to the teachers that I'm coming in and we're just gonna have it out with this class. And so we sat down with, I think it was grade 3 at the time, and I just said, "Right, I'm a pirate. I'm also a robot," because I had prosthetic hands, robot hands. And I explained to them everything that happened. And I got them to ask me questions. And we just, Izzy and I just stood next to each other and just fielded this fantastic collection of questions from these kids. And it
yeah,
actually turned the conversation for her. Instead of being bullied, it was one of, wow, like, that's so cool. Your mum's got a
mm,
pirate hook and robot legs, and And instead of the kids hiding from me in the car park, they would come straight up to me and ask me questions. So I
Yeah.
think just confronting that straight on was probably the best thing we did.
Yeah, I mean, I went with a friend of mine. We used to go around to the schools and we talk about, the disabilities that we had, and the kids would ask us questions. And the younger they are, the more direct the questions are. They ask the question because they want the answer. The
Yep.
older they get, they try and be more PC, and they sort of
Yeah.
allude to a question. And
Yep. Which, that's what we learn to be as adults, is trying to be respectful and not upset people by asking uncomfortable questions. But there's a bit of a mix. Sometimes you have a gutful of the little kids asking you questions, and you just don't want to go there
yeah,
because you don't always want to be the local town freak show. But it's, if we don't allow the kids to have that discussion early on, then it's just going to turn into these adults that don't understand.
exactly. And
Mm.
when you started getting out back into the community, how were they treating you and your family? Um,
Well, the benefit that I had was everybody knew me because I was on all the parents and friends committees for the primary schools. So they all knew my face because I was always up there harassing them for fundraising money. And then at the time, my husband was also teaching at the local high school. So the primary school kids knew me, and the high school kids knew my husband. And then word got out because we started doing media. We were on Channel 7. So the whole of the neighbourhood was watching us on TV.
yeah,
So by the time I made it home, they all knew exactly what was going on. And in actual fact, the entire town sent me cards and flowers and messages of support while I was in hospital, because I was in hospital for so long, um, that I think the whole town knew. And then I turned up, and outside of the kids freaked out with a woman being pushed around in a wheelchair with no hands and feet. They were incredibly supportive, really supportive. They did fundraisers for me, fun runs, and all sorts of things. I even had a tattoo day. Our local tattoo parlor did a fundraising day that he gave out tattoos for free so that he could
wow,
raise money to help us. So yeah, it was enormous. It was great.
yeah,
And that's the joy of living in a small country town, is that everybody knows what's going on.
yeah. I like the town I live in. It's like in country New South Wales. There's like 25,000
Yeah.
people. Um, yeah, that my channel's called Blind Advocate because depending on who you talk to, I'm either an advocate, an activist, or a troublemaker.
No, I think if you're one of those, you're probably all three anyway.
Probably, yeah. 'Cause I can get quite vocal at time. I actually took my counsel to human rights
Right.
because I wanted the businesses in the CBD put A-frame signs out in front of their shops up against the
Yes.
wall, and people who use canes use that as a shoreline. So we're constantly, walking around these signs and tripping over, and you know, I asked them to move them out, and they refused. And after 10 years, I went to human rights, and um, council said they'll go and get their own expert legal advice because I had a barrister pro bono
Mhm.
to take it to federal court. And the advice council got is if this goes to court, you'll lose, so move it out. So they did,
Right.
yeah.
Um, yeah, well, you're lucky you don't live in central Melbourne. My God, the electric scooters, they're just everywhere, and everybody parks them just where they stop. And wheelchair user or somebody with vision impairment, I couldn't think of anything worse. It's just they're all over the place. It's horrible.
Yeah, well, up here it's not too bad. People up here are respectful of each other, so it's quite good. But like even Gosford Council and Wyong Shire, they have the same policies up here now, down there as we do up here, which is good. And I think Sydney does as well. the city itself. So it's getting there. It's improving. The access is improving slowly but surely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, we're always going to have to keep fighting the good fight, so that
exactly.
things change, make it easier for the people behind us.
Yep, exactly. So with your prosthetics, did you was did all this happen before the NDIS or after?
Um, just before. So I had a couple of years that I would have been on the statewide equipment program. So I got my wheelchair through that, and my prosthetics were coming through some sort of funding that I actually have no idea what it was. Just my prosthetic team organised it for me. And then I would have got my first NDIS plan maybe a year or two after it rolled out in Victoria. I think it was Geelong first or Tassie first. So I've been on the NDIS for a good, 6 years or so, maybe. I've had maybe 6 plans. And yeah, my first NDIS plan, they funded me for a single limb, which is
Oh,
great.
what?
Yeah.
One. Yeah. So what are you supposed to do with the other three?
I got
It's
one
just
leg, so I can
that's
hop around
crazy.
on one leg.
That's crazy. That's just ridiculous.
I don't know. I don't quite know what was happening then. It was a young girl who was writing my
Uh,
plan, and she had a social work background, and I don't think she'd ever dealt with an amputee before in her life. And I don't know what she was thinking when she decided that all I needed was one leg.
that's
Anyway, I got that
terrible.
fixed pretty quick. And NDIS has been pretty good for me over the years. It's certainly, I've had to fight for it, but the equipment I've got at the moment, there's nothing that I don't really need. Like everything I'm sort of getting is happening. It does take a bit of work. Recently, I'm looking at trying to get some disability housing because the house I'm in at the moment is very undisabled, not disabled friendly at all. And for us to renovate would cost a fortune to bring it up to standard. So I'm trying to get funding to get SDA housing, and they very kindly offered me funding for a group home. So at the moment, I live with my husband and my 3 daughters, and the funding I got was for me to move out and live with 4 disabled people. It's like, no, just can we read the fine print, please? And so I've been battling with that for 3 years, trying to get that sorted.
That's ridiculous. Trying to move you away from your family. That's just
Yeah, when
chronically
my
bad. I
husband
just
yeah, my husband is my main carer. He helps me every single day, and if I had to move into a group home, it would mean that I'd have to have a paid carer every morning and every night. So,
but
yeah, anyway,
what about your mental health and being with your family? It's just crazy.
yeah, um, the way I see it is just that they haven't read the fine print. We've put reports in and information, and somebody just didn't read it. They haven't. They've skimmed over it and just ticked a box and moved on. And so,
You
but
know what the problem is that they get these people in who have no idea what they're doing into a position where they get to tell people what they can and can't do, what they can and can't have, and how they shouldn't or shouldn't use things.
yeah,
It, it's
um,
it's
I
I don't know what the hell the NDIA is doing. You can't give somebody like a 3-month course and put them in a position where they're directly interacting with a person's life.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is. At the moment, I'm working on trying to start up a disability support program that runs out of local councils so that whoever the next person that comes onto the NDIS understands how this works, and it's not just seen as a fight for money, so that we have a better understanding of what we want and what we need and what, the whole reasonable and necessary thing and how that that plays out. My worry at the moment is people get these plans and desperately try and find ways to spend their money when really they don't necessarily need it. Is my experience.
This is what I have an issue with the NDIA. With the NDIA board and the IAC, the Independent Advisory Council or Committee, whatever they call them. When the Liberal government was in, they had people there from mining backgrounds and chemical engineering background. Out of the 12 board members, 2 had any sort of work-related disability or health field. 2 out of the 12.
Yeah.
Since Labor's come in, that's changed, and there's a few people on there with disabilities, but you still can't contact them. You know, as a last resort, you can't contact them.
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to play out and how to improve it. But I think, we're heading in the right direction. There's a lot of discussion around it, which is great. And the more we talk about it and what we need and advocate for it, the better we're going to all be.
Well, I look at it this way: like, we need to look at and celebrate the wins. We also need to look at the bad and try and improve it. But in between those 2 points, because I've been looking at this for 12 months, and Chris and I have gone through so many stories. There's thousands upon thousands of people who are caught in limbo who don't know what to do, who are not getting the right supports as far as OTs and physios.
Yeah.
The NDIA are ignoring the reports. They're spending, $3,000-4,000 on a report. I talked to a woman a few weeks ago. She had 33 reports. 33.
Yeah.
And they ignored them all. It's just, I think the NDIA board and the IAC need to smack up the back of their head. They need to go out there and talk to people, not just.
Yeah. Well, I'm having a meeting with Bill Shorten's advisor on Thursday.
Are you?
I am. I'll pass on your message.
Well, I just can't see the sense in the NDIA wanting reports, then ignoring them. And the NDIA is so inconsistent. One person can get one thing, and another person who needs the same thing can't get it.
Yeah. So what I'm working on is we've got a charity that we're just beginning. It's called Get Started Disability Support Australia. And the idea is that everybody around Australia gets introduced to how to live with disability. So I learnt, I became disabled when I was 39 and I knew no one who had a disability. And I couldn't for the life of me find someone to call up and go, how does this work? What do I do? I don't know what the NDIS is. I don't know what Centrelink support's out there. I don't know how to get my wheelchair onto a train. I don't know how to do this. And I had no one to call. So the idea is that Get Started is a place that you can come as a newly disabled person or someone who's maybe got a child that's just been diagnosed or a baby with a disability. And you can come and meet people that live in your neighbourhood that have been doing this for years and that have this wealth of understanding. And they can talk you through it because at the moment there's none of that shared experience.
No, there's not. I've been asked a few times to start up an NDIS support group just to let people know, how the NDIS works and who to contact. I got my first disability in '89. It was tumor in the spinal cord. I went paralysed from the waist down. I was told I'd never walk again. Proved them wrong. Then in '92, I contracted MS and that destroyed the optic nerves and I lost my sight in '98. So I've been on the disability pension since '89.
Yep.
When I came out of hospital, I didn't know what to do. Luckily, I had a friend, and if you look on my channel, there's an interview I did with Steve. I was friends with him prior to me getting sick in '89. When I got released from hospital and got back home, he rang me up after about 2 weeks and said, "What do you need? How can I help?" And he helped me, get on the DSP. He helped me, get in contact with Paraquat and Spinal Cord Injuries Australia. Um, it was a great source of information. Um, and like you said, they're the sorts of people that we need to get into the community and provide that wealth of knowledge and pass it on to others.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're hoping to do, so that the next person that comes along knows exactly where to start. Yep. So yes, yeah, and I think if we have that support, that peer lived experience support, it will actually help people to understand what the NDIS is and how to use it and what it can and can't do for you, and what avenues to take when it goes wrong, so that you're not having that 3-year long process and fight to try and get the correct funding and the correct support. It'll take that mess out, and you shouldn't then need 33 reports. Like, one report given to the right person should be enough.
Should be. I had in the first 18 months when I got on the NDIS, I had 6 or 7 different LACs in 18 months.
Yeah.
And I've got complex needs.
Yeah.
So I've got multiple disabilities, and I'm not. I rang up the NDIA and said, "I don't want nothing to do with LACs anymore. They're useless. I want nothing to do with." Well, you have to. Yeah, no, I don't. And they said, "Well, you have to have an LAC." I said, "No, I'm not going to use it."
Do you have one now?
No,
No, neither do
no.
I.
I'll go through a coordinator of
Yep.
support. She's fantastic. She's gotten me everything I need. Prior to having my coordinator, everything I applied for, 100% of it was knocked back.
Yeah. Yeah, support coordinators, if you get a good one, they're quite life-changing.
Oh, it's improved my life
Yeah.
dramatically,
Well,
and
that's good.
yeah, I finally found a great support organisation, Aruma. They've been fantastic. So
Yeah, so
um,
it just takes trial and effort and unfortunately time, but you get there in the end. Yes.
yeah, everyone says to me, "Oh, it's like building a plane while you're trying to fly it." Well, that's good for the pilot, but what about the passengers?
Yeah.
Uh, you can't use that analogy. It's not. It's not not appropriate. It's not right. But
Mm.
look, things are changing slowly with the NDIS, and slowly for the better, but there's still a lot of inconsistencies out there, and people are really struggling. So
Mm.
more needs to be done to educate people on the NDIS and the NDIA staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I
Well, yeah.
I
Be
had
nice.
one woman. I had one woman. Sorry,
On.
she didn't know the difference between being blind and being vision impaired. I had to explain it to her,
Right. Okay.
and she was telling me what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work. Thanks. But anyway, um,
Well, hopefully you explaining that to her once is enough for her to understand for the next person and the person after that.
hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully, but you
That's
don't know.
that's the thing with disabilities, is there's such variance and so many differences, and some people deal with them better than others, that not one one story is never going to be duplicated over and over again, that's for sure.
No, exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
we all have our own strengths and weaknesses through our lived experiences, and that's what the NDI need to take into consideration.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Well, as I
yeah.
said, I'm chatting to them on Thursday, so we'll see. We'll see if we can make a little dent in a very big machine.
Well, look, I sent Bill Shorten a letter last week regarding people getting compensation payouts and the NDIA wanting money back from those payouts. And it's very unclear. I couldn't get a straight answer from the NDIA when I
Mhm.
rang them, because I've come across this a few times. People get injured, they go on the NDIS, then they get compensated, and the NDIS want nearly 100% of what they've been awarded in the compensation claim.
Okay.
So it's very unclear, and Bill Shorten needs to make that cut and dry, very clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he hasn't responded. So
that's all some heavy mathematics, I believe, to work that out. Yeah, a few quadruple amputees that I know of have done that and had their compensation, and then of course you have to pay back what has already been paid out. But my understanding is it should just be added to the compensation. So, you know, the insurance policy gives you, this is my understanding, it gives you money for your future life, but then it also should add on the costs that has been associated with your disability up to that date. And the insurance pays it back to the government.
Yeah, and I think that's a breakdown from the lawyer side of it too. They should be looking into the NDIS side of it.
Yep.
You know, when they put in these compensation claims. So.
Well, yes, that's where people who have done lots of degrees should be able to work that out for us. But it would be nice if it was clear, so people like you and I can understand it too.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, telling you before we went live about that song from the girl with Down syndrome. It's can you just play that for us, Chris? Yeah, play that. Just listen to the words of it. Just a couple of lyrics in there are really well done.
All right, sounds good.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but she's dancing around and she's lip syncing to the person singing the song. Yeah. It's just queuing that up now. How'd you get the interview with Bill Shorten? Oh, here we go.
For him. My social worker's making my parents sad. Our romance is growing flat. For he likes services and systems, while I like to go out and about. Goodness knows where my services will be. Service land doesn't care where I'm at. It looks as if my needs will never be met. Something must be done. You say challenging and I'll start shouting. You say workshop and I say sweatshop. Challenging, shouting, workshop, sweatshop. Let's call the whole thing off. You push outings and I'll start doubting. You push austerity and I'll cancel rebound therapy. Outings, doubting, austerity, tramplines. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if you cut my funding off, then we must part. Oh, if we ever part, then that might break your chart. You speak in acronyms, so I don't know what's happening. But if you say the R word, I'll get you transferred. Really, do we need each other? So we better call the calling off. Let's call the whole thing off. You say behavior like I'm a failure. You follow policy, but I want equality. Behavior, failure, policy, equality. Let's call the whole thing off. You hired Priscilla, and then there was Camilla. Stuff turned over really frightens my pet chinchilla. Priscilla, Camilla, oh my poor chinchilla. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if you had your way, you'd put me in a placement. And oh, if I knew your ways, then I would hide in a basement. So you go for group homes and I'll go for my own home. I'll find the right stuff and cancel the bank stuff. Really, do we need each other? So we better call the calling off. Let's call the whole thing off. You like compliance and calling on clients. You say jargon and I say pardon. Compliance, clients, jargon, pardon. Let's call the whole thing off. I like bananas and person-centered planners. I'm not non-verbal in front of my circle. Beth Mount, Jack them and Pierpoint. Let me send this side the way. So I'll do self-direction and you hold your objections and ask for my consent before you do my assessment. Really, do we need each other? So we better call the calling off. Let's call the whole thing off.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Loved it. I haven't seen that before at all. Where'd that come from?
We just found that this morning on Facebook. That's when you rang on. You caught me off guard because Chris and I were just killing ourselves laughing. You know,
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
make sure you share it with your on your YouTube in the notes down the bottom.
But some of the you say workshop, I say sweatshop. Was
that's great.
100% correct.
Yeah.
You say like you say the R word, I'll get you transferred.
Well done. Good luck to them all. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll be interested in where that came from.
We're tracking that down. That's what we're doing this morning. I thought it was just really well done. Really well done.
Very good.
How did you get on how did you get to talk to Bill Shorten?
Oh, well, so I sent him a message, a letter explaining the charity that we're getting up going, Get Started Disability Support. And I gate crashed his Christmas party.
Oh, did
pretty
you?
Much. In a nutshell.
How'd you do that?
I found out that it was on, so I turned up, and it turns out that one of his advisors was actually a student at my husband's old school. So she knew me and, grew up in my country town. And so it was like, right, well, it's time that we all get together and have a conversation. So I was just in the right place at the right time. And I don't take no for an answer.
Oh, yeah, I think you've done fantastic taking advantage of it. I would have done the exact same thing, yeah.
Yep. So fingers crossed it'll work for us. Now, so Jeff, I must move on. It's come to 11 o'clock, and that is when I turn into a pumpkin. So
can I just ask you one question before you go?
Yes.
Your charity, are you going to start different chapters around the country?
Yeah, so we're very, very, very new. So for the general public, we're not out there yet. We're trying to find funding at the moment to get us going. And the idea is that each neighbourhood would have their Get Started Disability Support Hub, and there'd be a coordinator in the hub, and it's their job to run our introduction program to living vibrantly with a disability.
Yep.
And then the idea is that we would then help you understand how all this works so that you can find all the information and all the support, and you know what an LAC is, and you know what a companion card is, and you know where to find support workers and everything, and you're not doing it all blindly, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
So, to make it easy and accessible for everybody. So that's the plan.
Well, if you'd like any help with it at any stage, you've got my email address.
Yes.
Just shoot me an email. I'm happy to help out. I wouldn't mind starting something like that here.
Well, I would suggest if get onto the website and have a look what we're doing. It's www.getstarted disability.org.au. We are literally just getting going, so we're yet to actually put our programs together and put stuff out there for the general public, but we are working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that it's going to happen. So if anybody's out there and they're interested, please get in touch with me. You can find my details on that website, and yeah, we'll get started and make it all happen.
Great. Yeah, no, look, appreciate you doing stuff like this. It's like it's going to benefit everyone in the future as well. So,
Yep.
All right, well, I better let you go. Thank you for coming today and talking to us. It was fantastic. It was
brilliant chat, and lovely to meet you, Jeff. And no doubt we'll speak to you again sometime soon.
Hopefully, and yeah, thank you for coming, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, cheers. Great to talk. See you.
Okay, thanks, Mandy. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so yeah, have it there. We had Mandy, who's a amputee, talking about living with disabilities and being a parent with disabilities and NDIS. A lot of information, great chat. That charity she's starting, that organisation she's starting, it's going to be fantastic. I can see it having a bright and long future. All right, so we might end it there shortly. Is there anyone in chat, Chris, asking questions? No, that's right. All right, we'll end it there. Thanks everyone for watching, and thank you again, Mandy. Appreciate it. Okay, bye.